Hi everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we're going to be talking about a Pendulum, and this is published by Stonemaier Games. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can see our videos as they come out.
This game is all about pendulums. So you have these pendulums that you swing back and forth, and that's the whole game.
It is. That's all you do. You try to get them to swing at certain rhythms.
What's that thing? Who's that? Newton's?
Yeah.
Bing, bing.
That's not this. No.
It's not. You're right. This is a worker placement game, but it can have, it doesn't have to have, a real-time element to it. You're putting these workers on these placements. You're getting to activate all these other abilities that your characters have. It has kind of an asymmetrical, different special abilities and cards that each player can have. The quality is fantastic. Let me show you what it looks like later on the table, and I'll give you a really quick overview if I can. Alright, so here's our player board setup for Pendulum. There are 5 different player boards. They all have different special abilities. They are double-sided, so there is an advanced side as well as kind of a basic side. And they all have special abilities and different things that they do. For one thing, they all have different victory point tracks. So we have 3 different kinds of victory points. We have red, blue, and yellow. They all have names, but, I forget them. And there's also kind of a special achievement over here that has to cross over that line as well to win the game. So all of these markers are going to be moving up over the course of the game, trying to get them over that threshold line right there. Your starting resources are listed at the bottom of the little squares there. So we start with 2 of those little yellow ones. All along the bottom here, these are all special abilities that are on the board that you can do. And each one of those boards is different. However, you can customize that as the game goes on. You're going to be able to buy cards that you can tuck underneath the board here that has to match up to that symbol. So let's say we wanted to make our yellow one a little stronger here. We could tuck that under. We take that yellow action, we would get 2 of the yellow resources as well as 1 of the red ones. We could, buy another one if we do the same thing. Now we would get 3 of the yellow and 1 of the red whenever we take that yellow action on the board. You can get as many of those as you like. However, basically what's going to happen is at the end of each round, you have to discard down to having 2 at most at the end of each on each one of these tracks over here. We also have some votes that we are going to collect over the course of the game. And whoever has the most votes at the end of each round is going to have some special abilities they can do, get some extra victory points. Over here, we're going to have a hand of cards. Each player board, including each side of the player board, gets to use some of these cards. There's 4 per player. So, for instance, our symbol here matches up with our symbol there. And there's all these different cards that we can use. So each player has something they can do to get more workers. So ours says we can pay 4 workers in order to get a new little guy and add him to our pool. Once we use it, we place it down there on the board. There are a variety of other abilities. We can get extra resources, extra victory points, or maybe double up on some rewards. And that's just this one character. Every character has their own special ones. They're kind of tailor-made for them. Again, after you spend them, you're going to put them there on that pile right there. To refresh your hand, you have to pay whatever that resource is. In this case, for this particular board, you have to pay 4 votes in order to refresh your hand and get those cards back. I'm kind of being reckless and only using one hand, but everything usually doesn't slide around this much. So basically, that's our player board. Now let me show you the board itself. This is a worker placement game. So like a lot of worker placement games, you're going to place a person, and then you're going to take that action. However, it's a little bit trickier than that. There are 2 rows on those timer areas, one where the timer is and one where the timer isn't. Now, you can only place characters, you can only place your meeples where the timer isn't. However, you can only do the actions wherever the timers are. So, for instance, if we had this person here, they're kind of stuck there. You could take them off, I guess, and do whatever you wanted with them. However, if you wanted to use that action, you would need to wait for the black timer to run out of sand all the way, and then someone would flip it over. And now, we can move them down and take whatever action is at the bottom of that strip. Now the timer is ticking down, but we can't move our meeple until, again, that timer is no longer where they are. So once someone is in a place where the sand timer is, that's when you take that action. However, you cannot remove them or move them until the sand timer has moved away from them again. Some actions have a cost. So for instance, in order to buy these cards, this spot over here, it says it costs 4 of those red resources in order to do that action. The purple and the green areas, they all have basically 2 of the yellow resources you have to pay in order to do those actions and slide them down. So the black timer is a 45-second timer. It's going to go the fastest. Whenever it's empty, someone can then flip it over and do the those actions that associate with where those meeples are. The green one is a 2-minute timer, so it's not very often that it flips over, but the rewards are pretty good. However, the purple one is a 3-minute timer, and so that one rarely flips over compared to the black one, but the rewards are really, really good. So if you're committing someone, let's say like we got our meeple here, We commit them to a purple area, and the purple timer flips over. Oops. We get to do a really good action. However, they're going to be there for a while. We would have to pay 2 gold and slide down and do whatever it is that you get to do for that particular spot. A lot of these spots are going to give you resources, which you need to spend to do actions. However, you can also stockpile resources needed to accomplish this achievement over here in the middle. What's going to happen for that is you don't have to spend the resources, you just have to show that you have them. In this case, this one that's showing here is Trade Pact, requires 4 blue, 4 yellow resources, and having 3 votes. If you are the first person to have that done, you actually get to take this achievement token, put it on your board, and you get to slide over that gray token. That's the only way that you can do that throughout the game. And since that's one of the victory conditions, you really need to make sure it happens at least once in the game. However, if you've already got the victory point token, or you're maybe second in line, instead you would get the bottom thing. In this case, you would get a blue and a yellow victory point, which is still really nice. So someone can flip over a sand timer whenever it's empty, but basically once the purple sand timer has flipped over 3 times, that round is going to end. You're going to wrap things up. You're going to go over how many votes you have, and you get to rearrange this little track right here, which determines how many victory points you get and what awards you get going into the next round. Using the timers can get a little bit crazy, and if you're not someone who likes that, and that includes me, there is a timer track. So instead of waiting for the timers to actually drain down, you have this little token on there, a little hourglass token, and you basically slide it down, and you kind of call out, okay, so everybody flip black, green, and purple. Ready, start. And then you do your actions. Everybody done? Okay, great. Now flip just the black one. Okay, now just flip the black one. And so on and so forth. So essentially you get the same vibe and the same kind of action timing that you would have had if you had been using the actual sand timers. However, you still get a chance to plan out a little better because you know what's coming up next. You don't have to be so frantic about it. Both styles of play are fun. I just happen to prefer the timer track. I know Bethany prefers the sand timers themselves, so both can be a lot of fun. At the end of the round, based off how many votes everybody had, you get to choose one of these rewards, and everybody gets one. If you have one of the ones that has a star, or that sun on the top left corner of it, that's one of those cards you actually get to add to your hand of cards. So you can kind of customize and add to your own personal hand of cards. You'll be able to use it over and over again. However, the lightning bolt cards like this one is just a one-time use, do what it says. In this case, grab one of those cards that you can update your player board with. There are a ton of different abilities. You can get victory points like this one over here. This one says you can actually keep some of those extra, actually these kinds of cards. This one here, it always comes back over and over again. But what it says is you can turn one of your small workers into what's called a grande worker. Now, small workers, they cannot go where any other worker is. However, a grande worker can. With the exception of that black area, with the faster sand timer, once a worker is in a place, a small worker cannot be added to it. So the grande workers are really nice for that. So we're all going to get a benefit. At the end of each round, these are going to clear off. If this one got spent, you basically just put it back, and you put out some more cards. At the end of the game, there's going to be these red-backed ones. They're going to be all these victory points. There actually is another way to get that extra achievement token. You have to pay a whole bunch of resources to get it, but you can pay to get that last victory point, that gray victory point on your board. In order to qualify for winning the game, you need to have all of your trackers be across that line, including that bottom one. And then after that, if more than one person has done that, you count up all the spots that you are past that. And then whoever has the most victory points wins the game.
I think this game scales really well with all player counts. Sand solo, we haven't played it, so I can't speak to that. But I really thought...
This would be a fun solo one for you to jump in on. If you're ever going to solo game, this is one you should try.
I would just read a book.
I know.
That's what I would do with my solo time. Anyway, about this game. So I just thought it scaled really well, regardless of the player count that you had, and I just thought that the stresses were still there. It was still good, and the tightness was still there, and I just thought that it scaled really well at all, minus the solo player counts.
I liked the asynchronous player boards, right? Then there was kind of a base side and then an advanced side. The advanced side was really fun. There's all these different cards. Each one did something different that kind of matched your character's personality. And all the different tracks that you have to move up on, your victory point tracks, essentially to get you over that victory point line, where it's considered, you've succeeded or whatever that particular track. Each one has a different, maybe one needs more reds and less blues, but then one needs a whole bunch of blues or whatever it is. So each one's different, and each character matches those strengths. And I really liked exploring different characters because they were all balanced in their own way.
So like Ryan already talked about, it can be timed or not timed. And I just thought that was really fun because when it's not timed, you can see that sheet and you can really plan everything out as far as you want to go, knowing exactly when things are going to move. And the thing is, in the timed version, technically they still move just as much. And when we first played the timed version and in the first couple of rounds, it was actually slower because you'd already figured out what you wanted to do and you still had to wait like that 30 seconds for the 45-second timer to go. But then as it got going and you got like more people to play out on the board, it got really intense and you missed stuff. And it was like, it was fun that you could do either way. You could have a very similar feeling type of game, but have it to people who just don't like that little bit of stress. And then you can also play it to people who do enjoy that little bit of stress.
I have never played a Stonemaier game that wasn't produced absolutely fantastically, and this is no exception. I mean, every card that I touched was like this thick linen finish, right? Yeah. The player boards had this kind of, I don't know, this texturized, whatever coating on them that just made them really sturdy and really, really good. Things didn't slide around much on them. It was perfect for especially these little tracks that are moving around. There was like a big metal, whatever it was, achievement marker that you had to have. All the timers are really nice quality, and they all. Colors product. The art was fantastic. What a great production. But I mean, that's like I said, that's kind of the standard for Stonemaier.
Yeah. I really liked how the scoring happened in this game. Like Ryan said, the individual player boards have those different tracks, and depending on who you're playing, those tracks are at different points. But I thought it was really fun that you were trying to get past the point in order to score. So like you basically started at negative all of this and you had to move your way to the positive. And I just thought that was a really interesting thing that I hadn't seen done like that before. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this game.
I love worker placement games. I've talked about a bunch of them over the course of, as we've been doing these reviews, and this did some things I had never seen before. First of all, the timed element, obviously, but then there was also, some of the spots you had to, you might have to place a guy, wait around for the timed thing to hit, which also ties into the timing of it, but, you can only use them at certain times. And then there's also some of the spots you had to pay for. Some of the spots allowed you to trigger this other action on your player board that gave you all kinds of goodies based off of cards that you've collected. So, I mean, there's just all these different things going on. Every action was important. Worker placement games, I love anyways. And this one, like I said, did some unique things. And, man, it was a lot of fun.
So I really liked this game. I thought it was super tasty and I really enjoyed playing it. It was fun. I enjoyed it after the first play. After the first play, I was like, yep, this is fun. I like it. We are keeping this. This is enjoyable. I personally preferred the time aspect of it, or playing it timed. Like I said, the first couple of rounds of it like that, it doesn't really change anything. But by the time everybody's out there and has all their stuff and it gets kind of chaotic and you forget to do certain things and you have a guy over here, but you're not sure if you're going to be able to have enough money because you need this guy to happen at least twice before that can go. And it's just, yes.
I personally hated the timed version.
Hate?
Well,
hate is a really strong word.
Okay, I did not prefer the timed version. To create, such a crunchy, game with all these different resources that you really need to have in order to have all these actions happen, I felt the non-timed version was so much stronger. If I get to choose, I'm gonna choose the non-timed version every time. And I love real-time games usually, but there was times.
I see some fighting in our future.
Yeah, well.
Only time will tell.
But yeah, just when there's one of the games we were playing, I had a guy put over in the purple area where they're basically trapped for a long time waiting for their action to happen. And once they do get to do their action, then they're still trapped over there for a long time. And I needed to have certain resources in order to do that. And because of the timed element of somewhere else, I never had enough resources to do what would have happened over here. And so that I was just so shot in the foot that there was no recovering from it.
Yeah, whereas you were just not paying attention.
Right. Well, and it was just too chaotic. And that also, in addition to that, like the first 2 rounds were flat out boring. You're like, place a guy. So how's the weather outside?
It is the Midwest. That's a real topic of conversation.
And we were able to discuss it fully while waiting for our turns to happen because it's waiting for these timers to drain out. But yeah, as you mentioned, the middle of the game it ramped up, and then by the end of the game it was too chaotic for me anyway. So I still had a ton of fun playing this game. I just personally preferred the non-timed version. You get to do the same amount of actions, but you have to plan it out a little better.
Maybe I just don't like planning things. Just like going at it. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. You can also find us in all the places. You can find us on Facebook under Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews. You can find us on Twitter under Ryan and Bethany 1. And lastly, you can find us on Instagram under Ryan and Bethany.
Everybody, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.